Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sports Dungeon. It is Football Prediction Show. The man right to my right doesn't need any introduction. If you are any type of fan, you see him there snapping the pictures, taking the stories, and one-on-one with the coaches, and that's Brandon Cohn. We are talking football. We made our predictions in the 3A and the 4A a little earlier. Let's talk a little briefly about the Bombers. That's not your coverage area, but I've kind of went to the old man in the well and got to Scott McDonald over there from the Baxter Bulletins inside, and they've got a brand new coach over there at Mountain Home. The 6A and the 7A, this is a really tricky the way this is going to work now. In the conferences where they combine them together to create a conference. Everybody makes the playoffs. I mean, it's one of those deals where Mountain Home is just destined to make the playoffs. Okay. What they do after that, I don't know. I've not seen them. Scott says that there's some things that they need to work on. Coach Benji Mahan is trying to work on some things that are to instill his system. He's coming from a winning program from Northwest Arkansas. This will be good. I don't know if it'll be good this year, but I think that there are good things to come from the Bombers, and over at Bomber Stadium, I think it'll be exciting.
I think probably the rubber match for the Bombers will be to see how they do against Harrison.
And that's week 2 of the Harrison Goblins.
That's a good measuring stick because they play Harrison every year. Last year they got a win over Harrison, and just kind of show them where they're at. Yeah.
Speaking of the Goblins, this is kind of your territory. You are the beat writer for the Goblins. You cover all of their sports. I mean, whether it's a minor or a major, you're out there covering. Whether it's the cross country, golf. I saw you yesterday at a golf match. Tennis. You were at the Harrison Tennis yesterday with Bergman. So I mean, you're there in the faces of the Goblins, and you and I now are crossing a little more paths with the Goblin football. We've seen 2 games. You've been to practices a lot more than I have, but we've seen the blue gold game. We saw the scrimmage game against Batesville. Let's just chalk this up to they can move the football.
Yeah, they can. They've got 3 very adequate quarterbacks. I think each of their quarterbacks that they have, Dalton Lovell, Tate Stokes, and Clayton Etchison, each have their own strengths. And Coach Tommy Tice has said in different situations he's not going to be afraid to go to the one he thinks will do the best. But right now, over at the Batesville scrimmage on Friday, we got to see Tate Stokes take the lead there in the varsity scrimmage, and he mixed it up with a little bit of passing, a little bit of running the ball. So I think that's just a good place for us to look. We have a good quarterback coming back, and last year after Ryan Miller graduated, it was we didn't know what was going to happen. So right there, we've already got a good place to start.
And Tate Stokes against Batesville threw for over 200 yards. We had it up in the booth about 220. I talked with Coach Tice. He thought about 225 when they got right down to it. Tate showed some things that we had not seen, a little better arm strength that I had not seen even last year and even earlier. During the Blue Gold game a year in last spring during football. Yeah. His arm strength was not there. He has been in the weight room. Coach Leo has worked with him, gotten him where he's got arm strength and flexibility. Coach Tice has worked on that. The other thing with Clayton Etchison, even in the Blue Gold game, I saw him, as we talked about. Last spring, it looked like slow motion getting the ball. I mean, it was here to here to here to get it with slow motion, no time. He's speeding that up. They worked on his footwork. You're right. Those situations. I'll tell you what's interesting, though, and I think you and I talked about this off camera a couple days ago, was the Lovell Stokes combination on the field at the same time. I asked Coach Tice about this week, and he says, it's something that they've done in the past when they ran Miller and Stokes before.
A couple years ago,
they're going to be developing some more things. Right now, it's a pretty simple package. Trying to get used to it, both of them together. But I would say week 6, week 7, you're probably going to start to see some things that some exciting new spread offense.
You're going to have to. I mean, you got in the 5A West, you're going to have to keep teams guessing. And Harrison was able to do that last year, and that I give that the credit for them, getting the win over Greenbrier late in the season and getting a win over Siloam Springs. So I think as long as the Goblins can keep evolving, they'll still have a chance to get some late wins like that.
And I think that's true. I think after they get a little, even in the Batesville scrimmage Friday, they earlier didn't seem to have their feet. I mean, they hadn't hit anybody other than themselves.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit of an intimidation, but once they figured out that the line, held for 4 or 5 seconds, gave Tate plenty of time to throw the ball down the field, was a real big surprise and an encouragement to me, to a team of Batesville's caliber, to be able to sustain the line, give him 4 or 5 seconds to throw the football, Lev Colliver a chance, Rosin to have a good time. I tell you what, it was really exciting to see something that we hadn't seen, earlier in the year.
Well, and going into this season, back in the spring, we knew that the offensive line was going to be the best part of Harrison's team, and it still looks to be that way. And with those 3 quarterbacks, that's a really good combo. Now, on the other side, we're going to have to make some stops. We can't just rely on scoring points. And we talked about a little bit the scrimmage the other day. Defense didn't have a real good night, but that could have been just purely Batesville.
Yeah.
Harrison's not going to see many teams as big and as physical as Batesville this year. They're not going to they're a very physical team.
And talking with Coach Tice, who was not at the game but watched the game film, said, any of those 3 running backs could have done anything that they want. They could run it, do what they wanted. The thing that concerned me about the Goblins, as I said, was the 5 big plays they gave up. A run. The first play when we were going live football, the 79 yards. Then they on the first play of that live quarter, the tailback goes 79 yards, and then we get the ball, we get it back, and the next first play of their next series, an 81-yard run. Those were just things that we can't work on. Talking with Tice a little bit, he saw some things that maybe the outside linebackers need to work on it. But this is things that I know Coach Tice, Coach Eddington, and them will be on top of this week.
Oh yeah, and I talked to Coach Eddington earlier in the week, and he said this lets us know what we need to work on. And now that they have that focus and they can say, here's what we need to concentrate on, I think that we won't see near as many of those problems when they play Sheridan.
Now, the one thing Tice talked about with Sheridan coming up this week 1, is Sheridan has speed. Coach Tice is not going to fool anybody and say we're the fastest team out there, because that is the one thing that they're lacking is team speed. They don't have the true burners that they've had before. But I think it's going to be better, and I think that the defense has got to show that. The secondary needs to be tested a little bit. We hadn't seen much of that. Good work to 3 weeks of non-conference games leading up to Greenbrier, because let me just tell you what, Neil Burcham's going to throw it.
Yeah. And I think that Harrison's going to look really good going into that first week of conference, because they're playing a beefed-up non-conference schedule this year with Sheridan and Van Buren taking the place of Huntsville, who they'll play later on in the conference.
The last game of the year.
Yeah, the last game of the conference. And also McDonald County, which was just a waste of time for 2 years.
It was. We opened the season against Sheridan. It's going to be medieval fortress night out there, and then week 2 is Mountain Home, the big rivalry. The Bombers are going to come over. I think it will be a fantastic game. I think that's really going to be. It's going to be an exciting. Teams trying to figure out where they are, and the biggest improvement that you've got as a football team is from week 1 to week 2. You work on a lot of things, but when it counts and the game's on the line, and you throw in the kicking game and the special teams into this, all of those elements, play a factor into this. And I think the special teams for Harrison is going to be real good.
I think Harrison's going to have the best kicker in their conference, and John Colliver.
And maybe the best kicker. He can rival anybody in the state.
He's ranked 17th in the nation
right
now. And, that's a good number. And if I was a college coach, I'd be out looking at him right now. But, he's not just a one-trick pony. He plays on the offense as a tight end and plays on the defense as well.
Yeah, he plays the outside linebacker on the defense. Well, we're almost out of time, so let's make a few predictions. You see Harrison in or out in the playoffs?
I see them right in the middle. They'll have a chance to hit number 4, but more than likely they're probably going to be stuck in that number 5 spot.
Yeah, I think they need a win. If they beat the teams they should beat, which I think they ought to beat Huntsville, Morrilton. You're going to be fighting in Siloam Springs on homecoming, and then you get a win somewhere. I mean, you beat somebody at home that's least expecting it. You go on the road, maybe catch somebody sleeping, something like that, and get a little help. I think you could fall into that 4 spot.
And that's it could happen. 2 years ago, Harrison beat Greenwood at Greenwood. Last year they beat Greenbrier at home, and those were wins that nobody counted on. And as long as Harrison takes care of business where they know they can take care of business, I think that they'll give themselves a good shot to get in that number 4 spot.
Yeah, I think that's legitimate. 4. I mean, they could fall anywhere between 4 and really 8. I don't see them being 8th. I don't see them. No. Huntsville. I just don't see this. But I really think 4, 5, or 6 is where we're going to be talking about.
Worst case scenario, I'm going to say 6.
Yeah,
and that's worst case scenario.
But I think that there's things to be moved that we can build on from a year. You're going to have a year's experience next year going in with a year's quarterback. Some things that will be really, really good for them.
Yeah, this will be the first time in a couple of years that we'll have a quarterback we know will be moving. We'll still be able to play next year, and I think that'll be good for the future. And they've got a good 9th grade group who looks coming up.
Who looks real good. Well, Brandon, we're out of time. It's hard to believe that we've gone this long. Well, you heard it from us. Now let's go play the next 10 weeks and see what happens. We'll see if we're right or maybe we're wrong. Who knows? Until next week. This is the Sports Dungeon. I'm your host, Loren Tepper.